Good evening and welcome to Moving Forward, a production of the Bain Grandstand Advancement Association. On this program, we seek to identify obstacles to the forward movement of our country, and with the help of a lot of you, some of you in studio, some of you wherever you are out there, we seek to address these challenges, and if we cannot remove them, certainly we try to reduce them. We have a wonderful program for you this evening, and we encourage you to stay tuned. The topic this evening is that of volunteerism. Over the past several months, we have been trying to generate some interest in this very important area of our society, volunteerism, because we have observed the decline in many of the organizations and the entities that built this nation, the civic organizations, the community organizations, the philanthropic organizations, the religious organizations, political organizations. There has been a marked decline in the support, in the activities of these organizations. And that decline could be traced almost directly to the lack of volunteer persons involved. Persons seem to have replaced the need for volunteerism with finance. Everything is about finance, but there are things that money cannot buy. And so this evening we want to look at the importance of volunteering. We are a very small nation. In fact, we're just a speck on the international scene. And while we are said to be relatively well off in terms of our standard of living compared to our neighbors, our per capita income, which is what they use as the yardstick, is in fact skewed. There's a small percentage of persons at the top that makes a lot of money, but they throw all that in the pot when they're calculating the per capita income. So many of us are not up to the mark that they have set for the average income for Bahamians. Therefore, it's important for us to work together, to help one another. In decades gone by, that's how we made it. That's how organizations helped those who were in need, whether those organizations were lodges, churches, civic groups, because they had the volunteers. Now, many of these organizations can't keep their own wheels turning. Many of them, their various departments have to wind down because of the lack of volunteers. And so we are going to encourage during the course of this discussion persons to consider volunteering. One such organization that has fared fairly well in terms of volunteer service is Bahamas Against Crime. And it's because we are small, but we have dedicated volunteers. We have Fred Munnings, for example, who has been with the organization from its inception in 2005. And we have others that have worked over the years diligently in keeping the organization going. And through their voluntary service, a lot of good things have happened. And that's what we're going to talk about this evening. And our guests include a very special person, Mr. SheltonSirette.
Yes.
And you're going to see why he is special as well to us. And of course, I've virtually introduced Fred Munnings. Fred is a regular on this program as the director of Bahamas Against Crime. And we're going to talk about that. And gentlemen, I think you will agree that we have seen fewer organizations around. There is a book produced by the Ministry of Youth Sports, Community Affairs, listing the groups, the youth groups that exist throughout the Bahamas. And while there's an impressive list, number well over 300 organizations, less than a third of them exist in a functional way. And it's simply because largely they can't find people to carry on. And after a while, the existing officers, though well-meaning and committed and loyal, but you get tired after a while, Freddie.
Yes.
You're tired after a while, and unless persons are there to step in the breach. Your point of view.
Well, first of all, thanks once again, CB, for inviting me to be a part of this very important conversation. And it's a pleasure to be with Brother Sirette, who I know has made tremendous contribution to community development and specifically with your program, which you will share with us very shortly. But when you talk about volunteerism, a lot of people misunderstand that to mean that you're just donating your time and energies. But with it comes a lot of responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Any number of groups. I go back to my childhood when I remember men like Lou Adderley.
Oh, yes.
When I mention names like Vince Ferguson, Andrew Curry, and these people who have really played a significant role in the development of the youth of my era. You will find a Lou Adderley on any given afternoon at one of the sporting centers teaching and volunteering his time. Not like today, everything it seems that happens in the educational system, you must have a figure attached to it.
Yes.
I'm not saying that's right or wrong, I'm just simply saying back in the day, it seems that those who were committed to volunteerism were passionate about what they did. We just recently lost Elmondo Moxie, a very good brother, and my condolences to his family, whom I know quite well. But he was one of these community builders, and so many others that we know. Point is, when we contribute our time, you know, when I was studying for my degree in business administration, the professor always said that the only thing we really have to sell is time. If you think about it, each of us only have a certain amount of time in any given day that we could turn into either some kind of profit-making venture or some kind of recreational activity or volunteerism.
Right.
Your time is all that you have. And how you spend that time determines whether or not you become a Bill Gates or whether you become a pauper on the street. Each have a 24-hour span in the day, and you must not manage time, you need to manage yourself. And you may go into a lawyer's firm and he's going to charge you $500 for a consultation.
And that's a break.
And that's a break. And then he's going to charge you for the paper clip, he's going to charge you for the number of sheets of paper, but he will tell you that all he is selling is his time. So my point is, whenever you volunteer your time, depending on what you think your worth is, that's the amount of contribution you're making to that society. Whether it's Rotary, whether it's Hands Across the Bahamas, whether it's Bahamas Against Crime, whether it's Coalition, and I'm naming the litany of volunteer organizations
that we are
that you and I are involved with. Whether it's Civil Society Bahamas, whether it's National Heroes Committee, whether it's the trade unionism. A lot of people don't understand most of the work that's done in trade unionism is volunteer time.
Volunteer.
They can't afford to pay you because they're doing so poorly financially in many cases.
Most of the organizations.
Bottom line is, when you volunteer your time, you're making a contribution to the development of society. And that's the way I look at it. You know, you can contribute. If you're very wealthy, you can give a donation of $100,000. If you are poor like me, and like us, you contribute your time and you put a value on it and say, well, that would be my contribution for national development. But it's very important that we understand that volunteerism doesn't mean free.
No.
We got to get away from that. That's not free. That is valuable contribution.
It's contribution. Nothing is free.
No matter what you do, whether it's Red Cross, whether you're selling tickets at a Red Cross fair, whether you're managing an event for, voluntarily as a Rotary group or Kiwanis group or whatever, whether it's your fraternity or whatever. It's very valuable. I think it's important that people understand that when you see us out here doing these things, it's not for pay.
No.
It's for contribution to the development of our society.
Well, you know, just before we came on air, Brother Sirette and I were talking about the importance of volunteerism. Because those who volunteer benefit as well. You know, there's just something about contributing to the advancement of others, your nation, your society. Those who volunteer benefits, those who are the recipients, they benefit, and the general society benefit. But we were talking specifically about a program that Bahamas Against Crime has offered to the public. It's the Security Officers Training Program. This program was first offered, and I remember this distinctly, the 30th day of June, 2008, 10 years ago.
Wow.
And this program has been ongoing. We've had 12 courses. It could not have been possible without volunteers. Starting firstly with Paul Thompson, one of the greatest Bahamians alive today.
Yes.
Paul has made his contribution.
Yes.
You understand?
And still
For
doing
the
it.
last, what, 50 years or more?
And
Paul
still doing
has
it.
conducted
Yes, he has.
each of these courses
Yes.
at no charge. Bahamas Against Crime has conducted these courses at no charge.
And turned out some excellent officers
Well,
who are making a considerable contribution back to society. But more than that, they're making a decent living for their families.
Here's now this is personal account. See, Freddie could talk. And I could talk, and that would be endorsements. But we're talking about personal.
Right from the horse's mouth.
Brother Sirette, tell us about your experience with the most recent course.
Okay, sure. I'd like to thank Reverend Morse for allowing me the privilege to be here. Also, the guest, Freddie Munnings. That course is a tremendous course. When I was contacted about some week and a half ago from his voluntary staff, they were very fluent in what the information was that they were about to get engaged in. They were right on point and professional. And these persons, like he said, they volunteer their services. And when I got that information, I called my HR department, and we were able to come together, and we got some of our guys from where I work, Bahamas Faith Ministries, and we said, well, let's go and let's try to see what we could accomplish with that. Well, we went in and we met Paul Thompson. I knew him from the force, and very excellent teacher from then and mentor, and he's still going after all these years, 30 plus years. Absolutely. And he's still going. And the information was just like when he was back in the day, when he was a teacher, a lecturer. You know, the information, the camaraderie that we shared there at your facility, it was tremendous. You know, and then when you get involved with the intense program, oh my God, it brought back memories. It made me seem as if I was back in the police training college and having Paul Thompson there live in the flesh directing everything. You know, and then we had interaction, and it was very exciting. You know, I endorsed that program leaps and years from here. And if society would embrace it, especially the young men, they would see that there's something that you could gravitate to.
Yes.
Instead of gravitating to the negatives all the time of crime and violence and stuff, you could do something positive. And like Mr. Munning said, you know, it would be a contribution that you give back to society. You know, so the program last week, we had to even extend one more day.
That's right.
Where there was so much information going on there, we had to put another day there. And we're looking forward to our little graduation tomorrow.
Tomorrow night.
At 6 p.m., you know. But the Bahamas Against Crime, that is, oh my gosh, that is excellent. I'll endorse that over again, you know, and it's a good refresher course.
Yes.
I see here in Canada, in order to become a security officer, you have to do a full 40-hour training before you can even say you get a license. And you guys are doing this thing free. This is it. It's free.
Yes.
You know, and for the most part, when it comes up again, I'll get another few guys
That's right, too.
to come on board and support it.
Well, you see the genesis. Yeah, Freddie was
I
saying.
think CB, he's making a very valid point, you know, when you talk about a refresher course.
Yes.
When you go and matriculate through and become an officer, you should always go back and
You have to.
refresh
Yes,
those
yes.
basic training
Yes.
because they tend to get complacent.
Yeah,
that's right.
And what we don't do is, you know, even as a doctor, you are required really
That's right.
to go and
get
get
a
refresher
refresher.
That's
course.
right. That's right.
It's mandatory.
It's mandatory.
Well, how much more important is it when you place your hands in the life of security
Security
officers
officer.
and you put your valuable property in their care?
That's right.
They need to be on the cutting edge.
Yes.
And that's exactly what I think Officer Sirette is talking about.
Yes.
And it's important that businesses realize this, you know. And even though it is a voluntary, quote unquote, free course, businesses need to support
Yes,
these kinds
definitely,
of programs.
definitely.
Because if you were not doing it, typically people will feel, if I can't find no other work, I'm going to go and be a security officer.
No, but
Yeah.
that's not what this is about.
That's not what this
at
is
all.
about.
That's right.
Not at all. The
Being a
level of
security
training.
officer, you realize what you are doing.
Oh, yeah.
You're putting your very valuable property,
Yes.
and in many instances, your life, in the hands of that security officer. Because once you see him there in his uniform, that in itself is a deterrent to somebody who
Yes,
may be
yes,
thinking to do something untoward.
But you know, Freddie-
and then this brother is putting his life on the line
Yes.
because he may not even be armed in many cases. So
Usually
I'm
is not,
advocating
yes.
very strongly, and I have for many years, that the qualified security officer
yes.
ought to be armed.
Yes, yes. And that
They
was
ought
a
to be
point.
armed, and that is a point I'm sure of
You're
contention and
absolutely
discussion.
right. That was
in
a
your
point
courses.
that was brought up last week also in the
Yes,
class.
yes.
It was that, do you think that security officers should be armed in this day and time?
Absolutely.
And mind you, notwithstanding the fact that the criminals are armed.
They are, but they
Right? Now,
when they come
exactly.
armed.
You know, they come in
Yes,
armed, you know.
absolutely.
And we have to be cognizant of the fact that, yes, we are security officers there. We protect our clients from lawsuits. So you have to be professionally trained. Now, the factors of security officers being armed, you have to be, and you made the point, professionally trained.
That's correct.
You can't pick anybody up from the
That is
from
correct.
the
You
street
must meet the
and come in.
profile.
You have to. You have to be
Psychologically,
vetted.
socially, and
Yes,
otherwise.
and then you have to go through a program like Reverend Morse those have. You know, that's an intense 4-day program, sometimes 3,
That's
most
right.
times 3. But listen, it's a value for no money.
You know, let me interject here.
Yeah.
There was an individual in the program from Africa.
Okay, yes, I know him. I met him.
He came up to the office yesterday. He said Bahamians don't know what they have. He was speaking generally about the Bahamas, but he said a course like that would cost $2,500 in Nigeria.
Wow.
He said because they don't want you to get up.
Oh,
They
my
want to
God,
keep you
keep
down.
you down.
And he said, listen, he came up to thank us personally for that course. You see, the genesis of that course was in an effort to address crime, because we don't seem to understand that crime has so many components.
That's right.
And
That's
one of
right.
the components was unemployment, particularly among young people. So we decided that we are going to create an opportunity for young people, young men in particular, to be trained. And we knew that because of the increase in crime that we expected,
Yes.
that there would be a great demand for security
Yes,
officers.
yes.
And the other element of it, CB, as we said, is to bring dignity to this
Yes,
profession.
That's right.
There you go.
Like I said,
There you go.
typically people think, well, if the fella can't find nothing else to do,
He can be a
then
security.
he can be a security.
What security
No.
officer meant, start, hold the door, and that's
There you
it.
go.
No.
That's it.
No, but this is professional
I have
training.
seen and experienced situations in a number of business, you know, because of the type of work I do, where the security officer really had to put his life in
Yes.
danger
Yes.
to protect the property and the lives that were in a particular establishment.
That's right. That's
Well,
right.
you must know what to do.
Yeah.
You must know the psychology and the mindset of the guy who is the perpetrator. and you must also know how to keep calm and negotiate your way out,
That's right.
especially if you ain't strapped.
That's right.
Because the fella may have something that you can't deal with.
That's right.
The bottom line, though, man, if you pass this particular program and you have demonstrated that you are responsible enough, I advocate very strongly that our security officers should be on.
But there's something more fundamental than that.
Yeah.
When we started this course, it was not a commercial venture. We were not setting out to train security officers. We were setting out to address crime.
Crime.
Wow, wow.
To address crime. So we targeted young, unemployed men and women. And the next level
Right.
of candidates were not so young men and women, unemployed. And then the next level were those who were already employed.
In the industry.
Whether in the industry or not. I mean, they want to change
Right.
into this industry. They may not have been employed in this industry. So we had three different categories of
Wow,
persons that we
wow.
addressed. The first seats went to the young unemployed men. And that's why we decided not to charge. Because if these persons were unemployed,
They don't have the money
can't
to
afford.
pay. Yeah,
and
can't
we
afford
didn't
it.
want there to be an impediment, a financial impediment
right.
to them registering.
That's fine.
Now, of course, once we have as many of those who are willing to participate, then we open up to others. Over the years, a number of security firms have sent their people to be trained. Because once they heard it's Paul Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
See, because he does the training for the police,
Yes, he has
for
a
the
great
security
reputation.
firms.
Yes, he does.
And Freddie, as is always wise, you got to put in a plug for yourself. I ask these security firms, I say, y'all should be giving us something, you know. But you think so? You think they should be giving us something?
Definitely.
We training their officers.
Yes.
And I could say that one firm, and I don't mind calling the name Security Services.
You give a value
Security Services at the back
to
of
their program?
the back of what's the school on that road, Jane something.
Chain Street?
No. In Oaks by the Teachers Union. Security Services down in that area.
Yes.
They send 200. I say, man, we deepening the pool. You understand? And expanding the pool from which you can draw quality people.
That's right. And when they come to you,
You don't have to train them.
They have some
Right. They
And
already
so-
trained.
level of training
And so
that they can go right on the job.
They send $200. No such pangs of conscience attack the other security firms. But never mind that. We still struggled on. But the point I was making is, we've been asking the police force to take a different view of the security officers. We have suggested that they be incorporated into the fight against crime.
Crime, yes. Yes.
Stop and think about it. Right at this moment, there are hundreds of security officers scattered across New Providence,
Absolutely.
doing what they're doing,
Yes.
perhaps securing the interests of their employers.
Yes.
But they should be trained also
Yes.
to have an eye for the national interest. For example, if you are in your employer's property, doesn't mean you can't keep an eye on the street outside.
That's right.
And you see a particular car
Yes, sir.
with two suspicious individuals driving around, there has to be a way for you then to get in touch with your head office
Yes.
or with the police directly.
Directly.
So the police,
It may take too long to get in touch with
that's
your head
right.
office.
Yes.
So the directly,
hotline to the police.
that's right.
And when they see that call come through, they know that
That's
there's
right.
something going down.
That's going down.
That's right.
And they need to be able
And
to
so the
move on that and
police
move
are
aggressively.
today, perhaps, without thinking about it, they're depriving themselves
It's another
of
level.
hundreds of trained eyes.
Yes, yes.
That is correct.
That's correct.
Trained eyes. And that, once accomplished, will lead to the selection of those who are properly trained,
right.
like you say,
Yes.
to be armed.
Well, see,
So I'm saying, even before we talk about arming,
Right.
we have to talk
Training.
about including them
Yes.
in the whole security fight.
Well,
That's
you know,
right.
when we had this conversation about bombs against crime, one of our first planks is to prevent crime.
That's right.
So like you say, if you have hundreds of security officers, imagine how much stronger it makes our defense mechanism.
That's right.
Working very closely along with the military forces in the country.
Yes.
If a security officer, because of his trained eye, sees something going down, the average person may not see
That's
that.
right.
That's right.
That's right.
If they have a direct link to either the police or defense
Wherever,
force or
that's right.
wherever, immigration,
That's right.
that call goes through.
Just like that.
Officers on the scene, crime is apprehended,
And that's,
And Brother Sirette will tell you,
and you
Yes.
deal with it.
once you're through with this course, it's not only a trained eye, but a trained nose.
everything, the five
You know what to
senses.
look
And
for.
all the five senses.
Five senses kicks in.
The
average
five
person
senses.
don't know what that-
And
what
that's
to
a
look for.
part of
They see the fellow walking up and they
don't know what he's
already
doing.
case them out to see.
Yes.
He got a bulging right
Yep.
pocket, he got
That's
on a
profiling.
hoodie, he profiled him right
Yeah,
away.
yeah. Okay.
to
But
know that there's a
unfortunately,
possibility.
our security officers, for the main part, is not being used in that way.
Not
Right,
training them.
right.
We're going to pick up when we
once
come back
they're
from this break.
Only love